Well, if you like true crime, you're probably going to love this. This is Flashback Perspectives. I'm Instructor Thompson in my self-defense studio. This is our podcast and vlog on real violence. Please, if you enjoy the series, listen and learn vicariously the best way, because the price has already been paid. It's been paid in full and often paid in blood. Next up in Flashback Perspectives, we have Instructor Kosakowski. Now, he is a part of the Fight Science Workshop, and you may have noticed several instructors have been on Flashback Perspectives. He is a fantastic instructor, not just teaching Kung Tao, but several different disciplines. He also is the owner of traditional Filipino weapons. You can check out his websites and his training center, which he's owned since 1988, which is wholly impressive enough. However, even more so, in this lesson, he shares a time when one of his friends had been mugged at knife point, what he did about it, and excellent information on not just how you can survive, but many, many important things in the world of Kung Tao and edge weapons. Please enjoy the interview and learn vicariously. So, welcome everybody over here at Flashback Perspectives. I'm Instructor Thompson. Today, we have Instructor Kosakowski here with us, and he is one of the instructors we actually have at the Fight Science Workshop coming up this weekend. We're very, very excited for it. If you would, sir, please introduce yourself, what you do, what you teach.
Okay, I'm Ron Kosakowski. I own the Practical Self-Defense Training Center in Waterbury, Connecticut. I've been in martial arts since the 60s, actually, and still learning. So I call myself a teacher, a student, although I am a teacher also. And I own TFW. It's a blade company, traditionalfilipinoweapons.com. And, it's just a way to fulfill my my love for bladed weapons and weapons in general. So it's, it's all part of the martial arts and part of the history, the culture, everything else. And I enjoy what I do. Basically, that's it.
That's awesome. So, and the story we're going through today is from someone you know. So we'll go through the story real quick, and we'll have some questions going through kind of how things came about, if you would. Tell us about what had happened.
Yes. A friend of mine, when I was probably only in my 5th or 6th year in Kung Tao, we were learning a technique called I call it return to sender. That's my nickname for it. You borrowing from Elvis there, And what had happened is we practiced the move. He liked the move, I remember, and he went on vacation to one of the islands down in Central America there, and he was attacked. He was sitting there on the dock by himself, actually, and he was attacked. And I guess they tried to rob him. They pulled a knife on him. He did that move, that same exact move, what we call return to sender. And what he had done was, I guess he took the knife back into the guy, and that's why we call it return to sender, because the way he did it. And he took off. He had to go to the hospital because when he did it, he cut his forearm. He did it a little lower than we normally do, the way he did it. So he did a little bit screwed up, but he had to get, I think, like 7 stitches on his forearm or something like that, because he cut it open.
Right.
While he was in the hospital, this guy, they're doing an emergency run, bringing the guy into the hospital, and he was watching them working on this guy, trying to bring him back to life.
Right.
So he saved the life. We're unsure. He got out of the country.
Right.
So we're not sure if the guy survived or anything like that, though. Right. But he returned the knife to him, no fingerprints. So
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's with that with self-defense anyway. And I think it's kind of the funny thing when those things happen. It's not that it couldn't be the first time, but criminals, especially career criminals, they're kind of known for that. So when people run their name, the cops are involved and they run their name, they're going to figure out who he is pretty quickly.
Yeah, they go on fear tactics. Right. They go on fear tactics. Right. That's the thing. And I doubt even if he did do him in, I doubt anything happened because, like you said, career criminals, they probably know he's a career criminal down there, so yeah.
No, 100%. That's, and I think especially with that, and career criminals running that off of the fear, an excellent point. It's not something that, in their mind that they're thinking, okay, now I'm going to end up in a position where I'm cut, because a lot of people just give them whatever they want.
Yeah.
And so, whether that fight, flight, or freeze kicks in, if they're going to that, probably most people aren't usually returning to sender or actually defending that off and stopping the threat in that way. So he probably had never been cut before. It was probably first for him as well. It was crazy. So this, and it's coming from Kuntao. So this was your main style. Can you tell us about that? And what is Kuntao? Where does it come from?
Well, I'm into a lot of Filipino martial arts styles. My first Filipino martial arts style after I did Tang Sudo. Tang Sudo was my first one. Okay. I know I pronounced it Tang instead of Tung Sudo, like you're supposed to, I guess, but that's my English accent to it. But I started doing Kuntao in the mid '70s, and I fell in love with the style. When I went down there, I was basically handed my ass by the teacher and by students down there. Right. I was young, 17 years old, but, I couldn't believe, this was, it reminded me of the TV show, what David Carradine was doing in the show Kung Fu. It just reminded me of that, because the way he just handled everybody and the way my teacher could handle anybody, it was like, it blew my mind. And I said, wow, this is the real deal here. I said, it's not kickboxing. It's not wrestling. It's basically grabbing onto a guy. There's a progression to it, of course, but you latch on, you grab him by the thumb, your thumb in the eyeball, you grab him by the hair, you're biting on his throat and you're kneeing him at the same time. That type of fighting, like I call it fighting like a trapped animal. Right. And it's perfect for self-defense, and I've seen some girls in it, small girls, and believe me, they could fight, and they'd probably take somebody, a mugger by surprise, or a rapist by surprise very easily, They
all operate off of that fear, model. So that's awesome. So with Kuntao, and so you've been doing those, and then, so what, kind of developed the passion there for the weapons when you went out in there and you were training? You just kind of fell in love with that style?
Well, from Kuntao, my Kuntao teacher, Joe Rossi, he was the one that brought it to the United States. Okay. He had known Remy Prezes. Okay. And my first introduction to, say, other blade weapon type of styles, because Kuntao is a bladed weapon oriented style. Other weapons also has the sarong or flexible weapons and impact weapons, stuff like that. But it's you learn empty hands first, then you go into weapons. Where he introduced me to modern arnis with Remy Prezes. He knew him. And that was my first introduction into weapons, and that kind of fascinated me. And I just went on from there. I started studying from Dan Anasanto, Larry Hartzell, Paul Vunak, Edgar Salite, Leo Gahe, Grandmaster Leo Gahe of the Pakiti Kurja system. And that's just a few of them. I just kept going nuts. What is his name? Oh God, I can't even think of his name now. It was my latest one that I was with. I'm so bad on names. Forgive me on that. I don't know. Maybe I'm going senile. But there's another guy that I was training in, the Illustrissimo system, and it's just I bopped around all over the Philippines to meet various different instructors actually, and it was a lot of fun, and I just loved the weapons of it, and I wanted to start collecting the weapons of it, and it wasn't as easy as you think if you go in the Philippines to collect weapons. It was really hard to find. I had a friend of mine who was he's from the Philippines, but he's American, and he started driving me around. We were looking at all these different shops, antique shops, and other types of stores that were like that might have, something like that. You couldn't find real weapons. And I remember coming home with cheap tourist looking
Right.
swords and, you know, the Kamagong sticks, which if you hit somebody hard over the head, you probably would break them because Kamagong is brittle, you know. So it's not made for that. They're good knife handles, not for impact weapons, you know.
Right.
And yeah, I was coming home with stuff like that. And my second trip there, I had met a guy that we started a business together because he showed me a karambit. And the karambit was so beautiful. I mean, I was fascinated. It had the traditional sheath, which is a wooden sheath, you know. And he, I told him, I said, you know, we can't find these because back then you couldn't find karambits back in those days.
Yeah.
I had a karambit that's had the name Ninja on it or something like that.
Right.
That was the only karambit I could find. It was some cheap thing that I bought for $10 somewhere, you know.
Right.
And I think I still have it somewhere. I got to look it up. But, and I told him I could sell these. I said, you know, we might be able to start something together going. He gave me a box of karambits to take home with me, and we did this business on a handshake.
Nice.
And 2 weeks later, I sent back money plus some to start getting other things made, like the Ganunting, what was it? More karambits, of course, and Panute, and a few others also. We started making those. And it started off with maybe about, I think, maybe 10 different swords or something like that. And we just blew up from there. I think we've got like, I counted last night, actually, what did I come up with? 147 different items on the website right now, you know?
Wow. Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. So we got a lot now. So we built it up from, you know, karambits to this. Right. And that was in 2001 to what we're doing nowadays. You know, it's quite a fascinating business. It's been a long, hard adventure.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think, and so that's awesome. I think perfect spot to go. And so you have the site, and you have it's two sites, right? Because you've got your training center site, and you also have your weapon site, correct?
Yes, I have my my school site, which is psdtc.com.
Okay.
And that's the Practical Self-Defense Training Center, the initials of that.
Right.
And I've had that school since '88. I started that school.
Wow.
The end of '88, actually. Okay. Yeah.
That's impressive. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
It's hard to run a school. You know that firsthand. That's surviving that.
Yeah. We're one of the schools around, actually, in Waterbury. We're one of the oldest schools, you know.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't think there is anybody that's, I got a couple of friends that have been around, but yeah, I don't think anybody has a school as long as I had, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the TFW is where you can go. And I love TFW. And so people know we will put the sites there and a link in the comments so you guys can go check it out. It's one of the things I love about, you know, on here, especially with these, and you can go check out this site. And you've got videos of them doing, you know, these tests with the weapons. And it's one of my biggest concerns because I have, I think, one real sword that I would be comfortable with defending myself with. I think, and like you said, all the other ones, wall art, you know, they look cool, but these are not things like you get one swing and it's like snapping. And I love the tests you do with that. You know, there was one you're going through. What was it you put through the metal chair? There was like a stabbing test.
The Sanduko.
Oh, that was so cool. Oh, that was so cool.
We just threw that chair out because it finally broke down. We call it the world chair, the world famous chair, because I think that video got like 400,000 hits or something.
Yeah.
And that was I remember stabbing through the Sanduko Idaga, which is similar to the northern version of this Espada Idaga, where Espada Idaga is Visayan. This is the Luzon version. And I took it and I stabbed through the chair twice when I took the dagger, and I did the same thing. And no damage. I held it up to the camera, showed them no damage, no chipping, no nothing. Yeah. We got very high quality stuff. You know?
Absolutely. That's one of our biggest concerns ever when we're doing this and all the weapon work. And it was one of the reasons why I was very excited coming and doing the Fight Science Workshop with you. You know, we have this whole rule about we do not trust a weapon that we haven't tested. We have to know, because you can go buy any gas station knife. And I have a number.
Oh, yeah.
And that, like, you know, it's got a lock spring on it, but you can just unlock it by folding it like this. It's not supposed to do that. without
Yeah.
actually pushing it in. And so, and I know Instructor Kanata has had a number of talks on that too about, the type of knife, type of folder specific to, what has a good functionality to it. And I love that about, TFW stuff. The weapons are just awesome. And I'm super, super looking forward to when the cane comes out. Because I have one of those that's definitely not, a tool that I would use, but one time and then it would break. And so, and when were those coming out?
The canes should be ready within 4 weeks.
Oh, that's
The
awesome.
sword canes. I'm not sure about the impact weapon canes. I'm gonna find out that too, because we were designing it back and forth. So we're gonna come out with an impact weapon cane that you'll be able to bring on the airplane even, and anything goes down, it doesn't look like a weapon.
Right.
And just, walk with a limp.
I literally have a cane that I use because I do have a limp, and it's been difficult kind of training martial arts around that. Getting older.
Yeah.
And I thought, especially from that, wanting that from TFW, the quality of these things that you can't have a compromise for a safety tool like that. You do not want to have
Yeah.
a blade that's going to break. You do not want to have any impact weapon or force multiplier or anything that is going to give on you in an emergency. When
Exactly.
you have
Yeah.
to spend like good money on this to get something quality. If you do not get something quality and your tool breaks in the middle, you are going to be freaking out even more than you were freaking out before.
Yes.
And that's super important. I love that and how you guys do all of your stuff there. So that was excellent. And so a couple of things there, and from the story, some of these things and kind of thinking about them in the information that you have on that. For your friend, was he kind of what was his general worldview? Was he going through like he was kind of a cautious person already, or did this like event specifically kind of give him like a hyper awareness?
Well, when you're from Waterbury, Waterbury is a small version of probably the Bronx. And in fact, people that I have students that are out in New York City area, they come up to train once in a while, still do some of them. And they always said, everybody there go, damn, this is like a small version of Bronx. And, you got a lot of gangs, you got a lot of problems. There's a lot of stabbings, shootings, all the time. Right. I stay away from that stuff. I hate the fact that I even still have my school in Waterbury. I actually am looking to move out. I'm trying to. Yeah. And it's not easy because they want a lot of money for rents. And for the money I pay for the size school I have right now, I get something a third of the size and I pay the same rent, which doesn't seem feasible,
Absolutely.
So, I do want to move out though, because I've had so much happen, there. It's ridiculous, Yeah.
I know you were saying that about the sign and it's so difficult when you have this, when you have, especially your heart and soul into your business, your school, anything that happens is just very difficult. And for one to have been standing there, were you in that same location since '88?
No, I went from my garage to a school that had about 1,500 square feet. Then I moved to another place on the other side of Waterbury. That one, the reason why I moved out of that one, it was a nice school, but the location where it was, there was hookers trying to pick up my students at the end of the driveway. Me and my Kuntao teacher used to fight over the binoculars because it was a car wash next door. We used to watch them do the drug deals in the car wash. And
oh my goodness!
And one day there was a big police raid right there.
Right. Yeah.
What was the final straw was I had 3 people come in to visit the school, and all of a sudden gunfire started going off, and cars were peeling out, taking off. Wow. And these guys looked at me after they took off, because when I heard them take off, I kind of peeked out to see what was going on, and I saw them chasing each other down the road. Right. And I came back in, and the guys go like this. They say, "Well, that's okay. We're going to look for somewhere else." And I go, "That's it, man. I got to move out of here." So I moved to a much better area of Waterbury. Okay. It is a better area, far less crime than a lot of Waterbury, but it's still, I just don't like Waterbury. It was an industry town, had factories all over the place. Right. After the Vietnam War, things started, slowing down in the factories. And then when it came down to when what's his name, Carter? No, not Carter. Clinton started outsourcing business and stuff like that. That closed down all of Waterbury. Like any place, I don't care what state you're from. If you had an industry town, they all closed down clear across the country.
Yeah.
So that was a big stupid mistake to do that type of thing.
Absolutely.
And,
yeah. There's
I didn't mean to get into politics.
No,
I'm just saying,
I think, and I don't know. I would say if it was politics as much as it was economics. That
Yes.
Detroit. It happened, to a number of towns, and
Waterbury was a booming town at one time. Everybody was working. It had its bad sections.
Yep.
Now it seems like probably 2/3 of it is pretty bad.
Right.
Yeah,
that, and especially when you're talking about business and stuff with this, and so especially because for flashback perspectives, and our whole kind of thing here is just in speaking with the people, especially instructors who've gone through and experienced the real thing. When you kind of live and teach in this atmosphere, this, I mean, I'm sure that affects, the way you teach and, teaching there specifically to your friend there.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that, you kind of as a general philosophy for how you teach your martial arts and, the difference that you would see in what other martial arts are kind of doing versus living in the area where it's going to possibly happen when you walk outside?
Yeah. Well, I always say, for example, if I had a friend of mine who, say, grew up in Litchfield, Connecticut. Now, Litchfield, Connecticut, you have movie stars even that have moved there. Other people of importance that have moved there. The kids there were, they were handed everything on a silver spoon, basically. Had a car at 16 years old, bought from their parents, things like that. Yeah. Where in Waterbury, you didn't grow up like that, and you had to watch your bicycle if you wanted to keep it, and if you had money on, you didn't flash it, things like that, this was as a kid. So you kind of grew up like this,
right?
And I always said, because the way I teach Kung Tao or any style that I teach, very, very street oriented. And I feel somebody that comes from an area like that cannot teach martial arts like I teach it.
Right.
That's impossible, because you don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? I've been there and back. Right. I've been in every kind of situation you could think of, from, gang fights to, getting attacked and jumped and, things like that. I'm not a troublemaker, but at one time I was a little bit different on the other side of the fence,
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, it's like, I've got the experience of seeing this stuff.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I feel somebody from, a different type of neighborhood that didn't maybe had a fight in grammar school, they're not going to have that same experience in their teaching that I'm going to, because I know what goes on out there. I know what to look for. I don't fall for cons even, that's the thing. It's just the whole bit,
Absolutely. That's, there's nothing quite like, I mean, of all the training that we can ever do, I was like that about this, and why I want to do this series is experience is just a different teacher. And it's one of the best teachers that you can have. There's one thing to train it all, and there's another thing when you get hit in the face and you're bleeding, and all of a sudden you have to start to react to it and stop it. And so, I think, especially with that, I very much so appreciate having you on this with, this kind of the thing in the interview there. When we think about these things, I think there's such just a variety of martial arts. I think a lot of times you'll see, especially with the prevalence of MMA, we have more of a plain clothes kind of a thing happening now. But even if you're going back to, and Tang Sudo, they have, uniforms. Do you have uniforms in Kung Tao you wear kimono or no?
Basically, I don't have the shirt on. I have Leo Gaihe's shirt on. Sorry about that. But we wear a shirt and pants or shorts. I try to keep everybody uniform that way, but not a gi. No, we don't wear a gi.
Right.
And I haven't worn a gi since I was in judo in 1997.
Okay.
And I stopped wearing a gi because I wanted to fight, and I wanted to fight no gi, and then my knee went, and that didn't work out anyway. But that was I admire the gi, the gi work that they do and everything. It's just not my thing,
Right. Absolutely.
And for me to get into it now, it's just kind of useless, for me. But I admire watching it,
Yeah. I think that, there's a good. I like the structure of it. I always say I'll forever wear the kimono because in my mind, martial arts is about discipline and honor and respect, integrity. It's about the principles of our
Yeah.
behavior and how we behave. I also have just so much of the training that I just do out of kimono, and especially I talk to my students about this. Is you'll see a lot of my videos, even when I am moving, I will wear a kimono sometimes, but I want to know if my clothing is going to rip. I want to know what the restrictions are, if I'm going to have a snag, if, I have any kind of an issue with that.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to be wearing anyway. And so,
Yeah.
it's like, I love hoodies, but I also don't love hoodies because that's a couple of disadvantages that can be used against you.
Yeah.
You're in a hoodie and like, you have to kind of know what those are, and how to quickly get out of it. And that's the kind of the nice thing about when you're training and playing clothes is you get to kind of see, what that looks like. And I know, especially you guys doing a whole bunch of stuff in MMA, and your son's in MMA, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's awesome.
He's a professional MMA fighter and pro grappler.
Oh, wow.
He won $5,000 in a grappling tournament just recently, actually.
Oh, awesome! Congratulations. That's great. Where was
Fighting the
that?
best of the best there too, and that's that was quite an event.
Yeah. What was that?
I think it was a couple months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Actually,
Awesome.
yeah,
Very
yeah.
cool. So,
And he's got his next MMA fight is at the Mohegan Sun Casino. I think it's May 9th, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, that's awesome. You guys have been doing that for a long, long time, right?
Yeah, he's since he could walk.
Nice.
I mean, actually before that, I used to have him kicking his mother, holding in my hands, and she used to get mad at me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Roddy baby. Yeah. That's awesome. There is so much of, I think, of that world there, and especially for all the people that go through MMA, from the very first flashback perspectives that we did with Instructor Healed. When we talk about these things, and I have to ask the MMA crowd, because there's a number of people that believe that it's like the top tier, and it is as far as combat goes, and that it's like real violence. What would you say would be the difference between real violence and MMA?
Well, MMA is good for a one-on-one situation. There are rules. If you notice where they kick, we don't care about where we kick. Although MMA does allow direct knee attacks, and you could stomp on the foot, things like that. You can't headbutt, you can't bite, you can't eye gouge. You can't pull hair, things like that. You're not worried about multi-man attack. You're not worried about somebody walking up to your car and trying to drag you out. You're not worried about weapons. There's a big difference there.
Yeah.
However, the thing is with MMA, they actually fight. Where those of us that are practicing self-defense, we do make it as realistic as possible, but you try to hold on to students so they don't lose eyes. They hold on to their testicles, things like that. So it's hard to pull somebody's hair out, especially of people that are older, and that you grab them by the hair, and they're already concerned about losing their hair.
Yes, you can't be bashing students' heads.
Some things just got to be simulated where you can't simulate. And I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, we're so deadly, we can't fight each other." No, you have to simulate certain things. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And you got to give respect to it.
100%.
Even the knife fighting, we put lipstick on the end of the knife or something like that. I mean, that's the thing. So we can simulate as much as possible. I recommend wearing glasses, a groin cup, and a mouthpiece when you're doing that kind of thing. So it's practicing for realistic self-defense is not easy.
Absolutely.
We saw my carjacking video. I mean, we still did resistance, if you notice. He's trying to fight back. I must have put like about 10 of those out, and we're still fighting back and fighting hard. But on all the shots that we're redirecting a knife and coming in finger jabbing, we can't really hit the eyes and do things like that. You won't keep students that way.
No, absolutely. That's a really good point. And I always like to say, so MMA in my mind is probably like the top tier of the martial arts world, because it's where you really go do it. You can
in sport,
you can get your bones broken, you can bleed, but it has the all-encompassing safety net of, judges, of a referee, of someone who's going to stop a man from killing you. And,
Yeah.
like there's, especially as we talk about this with edge weapons, the amount of times I've seen this and played out in real life too, this knives are so prevalent. They're just everywhere. And I love all the firearm work and big into that world, but it's not as common in the rest of the world. It's there, but not everywhere. Knives are just everywhere.
Yeah.
And, it was one of my biggest concerns with that, especially when it gets real. And as you mentioned with the fear, most of these guys don't even really expect to have to do something. They figure they come up, they put it up against your neck, and they say, if you move, I'm going to kill you, and then try to get your wallet. And when those kind of things come in play, even if we take the weapons out in my mind, because that is what really goes to the most dangerous. We take the weapons out, and you have somebody who is actively trying to hurt you. When we have this outside of the ring, the entire thing in my mind just changes, because he could still kill me. He could still be stomping me, curb stomping. There's like a million things he could do that takes it out and back away. And I think there's a good amount of this, with MMA, that you get to do a good chunk of it. I do like that they don't have you punching to the back of the head and the spinal column. I think that's important because, you really be messing somebody up. They can cripple
I got a son in it. I agree.
Yeah.
Even the direct knee kick. I don't like that. Right. It's a sport.
Right.
And that could, if my son gets hit with that, he's going to have a hard time being a teacher the rest of his life, let alone, the MMA career. So, I feel sports should be left with rules,
right.
And that's one rule I'd like to see eliminated. I actually talked to the boxing commissioner about that rule. He agrees, but there's not much he could do about it. That's the thing,
Yeah. Yeah, that's, and there's a number of them too. I remember it was Watch Commander Milner's class we were going through, and the way they have it out in his county, he was a Watch Commander in Greeley PD, and he would say, you can shoot a man for punching you, because people have died from being punched before. So I think even in MMA, there is that real risk, because it could kill you. That is a possibility. It isn't a guarantee that it won't. It's a lot less likely.
Most people get killed when they get punched when their head hits the floor.
Right. And it's not
that's usually when they get killed.
Right.
See, that's the thing, or hits a table or something.
Right.
It's not usually from a punch. Look at the punch, the amount of punches these guys take.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah. And I think that's always, especially for a long-term kind of thing, you see that where you get like football players, you have a number of hits in your head before you start to have a problem. And
the human body's amazingly tough. It's amazing, I feel,
Absolutely. That's awesome. I think, so much of these, and you kind of have this whole spectrum covered, because you go through and you do martial arts, you're also doing the Filipino martial arts, and also doing the MMA, and you're also doing, everything you have with the website, and bringing it all kind of around, and then into the self-defense classes, where you're going through weapons and different tools and firearms. And I think that is so cool. You don't see a whole lot of schools that cover everything from firearms to MMA and everything in between. So I think it's great you guys cover the spectrum of all of it. There is a whole lot of this. Is there anything that you would like to see more of around that maybe people would be interested in if you thought you had like the demographic in Waterbury?
I'd like to see more women involved. For some reason, it's always been this way, where you'll get a room full of 20 men, and you're lucky if there's 3 women in there.
Right.
I very seldom see them in there, and I don't know why that is.
Right.
Especially when you look at the statistics.
Yeah.
They say like 1 in 4 women have been, some sort of abuse. And that's a high statistic. So when you have a room full of 10 women, 3 of them, maybe more, but I'm just, on a low estimate, had some sort of abuse, molestation or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just feel, more women should be involved.
Right.
I know when we were all younger, it was the boy went to karate, the girl went to dance school.
Right.
I feel they all should be in martial arts,
Absolutely. 100%. I think that's a really good point. I know.
Yeah.
So part of it is I can speak to a few points on that. There's a marketing thing for that that's specific to women's self defense. The You're absolutely right as far as a low estimate. The statistics I believe is somewhere between 8 and 13% actually report, and so it's
Yeah.
estimated that it's much higher than 1 in 4. But
Yeah.
anytime you throw numbers in, obviously demographic specific and in that part of society, but either way, it's entirely too much. There's entirely too many, and you're absolutely right. You should be having so many in there, just trying to get that out to more and more people. I do love that part's kind of exploded where you have that where there's more women's self defense classes. But I agree with you. I think especially for cross training and especially being a parent myself, I've my daughter's number of times. I want you to go cross train. Everywhere you can. I want you to go to jiu-jitsu, and I want you to go over and do any traditional martial art you want, and I want you to go over and do fencing, and then I want you to go over to the gun club, and then
Mhm.
go to as many of these places and go just get all the information you can possibly get, decide what you like, and get good at it. And
Yeah.
you really don't see enough women in it at all, and it's one of the things that is always scary to me. We actually have the same, type of thing even in firearms. There's not as much in the women as there is the men, and it's a shame. I would love to see way more women doing it. I think that's imperative. Especially the world we live in and how many bad guys are out there. It's really scary.
Yeah, so the statistics show that more women are getting their permit.
That's awesome.
However, you know what they do? They put it in their purse and they're not training with it. Like where my specialty is, I teach people how to get to their weapon. It's already in Filipino martial arts because in worst case scenario situations, you have to go for your sword or your bladed weapon in general.
Right.
And that you can't do it when you're confronted.
Right.
Now that weapon is absolutely useless. And you'd be surprised how many people say, I mean, you must have heard it. I'll guarantee you've heard this. What are you going to do against my Smith & Wesson? It's like the stupidest damn thing I've ever heard.
Absolutely.
And it's like, I actually have a story about that. A friend of mine had introduced me to somebody that was, it was in a VHS. It's like a bar for veterans and stuff like that, and the guy goes he introduces me as his friend and his martial arts instructor. So the guy looks at me and goes, martial arts, huh? What are you going to do against a Smith & Wesson? Said exactly like that. I was joking, but I grabbed him and I pulled him up to me into his face and I go, what are you going to do with your Smith & Wesson now? You don't even fucking have one on you, do you? Excuse me. But right. And I threw him back into the chair and I laughed. I started laughing. I was quite young back then and I was, high testosterone. It was quite a few years ago, probably about, I don't even think my oldest son was born yet. So it was over 30 years ago. But I mean, I did that and I just started laughing and the guy stood there in shock, and it's so true though. And it's kind of a philosophical story, because everybody says this and then everybody goes, when I tell them, well, you got to get trained with a gun. They say, oh, believe me, I know what I'm doing. You never had a martial art lesson in your life. You never learned how to get to your weapon. What the hell do you know? They have all these scenario training classes for a reason. Because that's a problem. You need to know and get well trained with a firearm. You can't just get your permit, buy a gun, put it in your pocket, and then say, okay, I'm all set. Because there's a lot more to it when it comes down to self-defense outside of even knowing, having a common sense when to use it. That's another thing, So,
so many good points across the board. Absolutely. I always love to mention when we hear that about Dennis Tuller and the Tuller rule, what most people know is the 21 feet rule. And, the funny thing to me is that a lot of times when people will even talk about this, they almost have it like it's the rule set that Dennis Tuller, being Salt Lake City PD, he had tested this with his cops who had time on the job, and it was based on the average police officer. So somebody who's already passed shooting qualifications, somebody who does that work, and somebody who has got time on the job can do it that quick. I don't even think most people can do it that quick. You're talking 1.5 seconds, and especially if we're talking about concealed carry, I love my OWBs. But the main thing I'm always talking about is how good are you at defeating your clothing? Because if you can't just go right here, right now, and get to it like that quick, much less if you're going to have to fire from retention or actually get into the frame. There's so much in this world from that point, and you're absolutely right. Even getting to it, because they have this presumption they're going to know. They just think, I'm going to know an altercation is happening because some bad guy is clearly going to be marked as a bad guy, and he's going to walk up and announce that he's a bad guy, and then he's going to say, I'm going to attack you now. Instead of what most resource predators do, where they just come up and they hit you a couple times, and now you know you're in a fight. They stabbed you a couple times and you're bleeding. Now you know you have to get to a weapon, and provided you don't freeze. And I love firearms, I do, but you're absolutely right. The amount of training you have to do to even get to that point, everything from, I mean, everybody talks about situational awareness, but it's true. You have to be cognizant of what the hell is going on around you. And you know, there's so many of those things. And you guys cover a good amount of that at the school, don't you?
Yes, that's a big part of, especially our Quintel training. And it's a part of the Pakiti Terja Kali training because I did this with both my Quintel teacher and Leo Gahe got us down to training with handguns and rifles. You know, not only just spears and sticks and swords and knives. It was like it was that too, and we did that out in the Philippines. You know, so it's you know, he felt it was important. You should know it's an extension of martial arts. But again, you have to be you have to be trained. You have to know that. And on top of it, again, I got to bring up the common sense aspect of it too. Right. You know.
Yeah. When do you pull? When do you not? What point is it?
Yeah.
You know, it especially. You know, we're talking about those with different types of predators. If you have a process predator, you just need to be rude to and get away from and create distance, and you have that time to be able to kind of identify, I don't know, you're a stranger, get away. Versus there's a guy that kind of did a double glance at you and then started to make a beeline up, and he's going to cut you off right at the door. And what those things even look like. Because, you know, and some of us like you, or you're going to catch that and see that step motion and be like, okay, here we go. And then you might be able to get to that. Yeah, you probably going to have that drawn on him before he's going to even reach for anything. But without all that training and that intuition and the knowing, there's huge problems here. I loved your talk on that. I had a similar thing for, you're talking about in the seatbelt when you're in the car, and you took your I don't know if it was a hoodie. I think you took it was a garment. So that you could reach and just straight go.
Yes.
And I thought that was just genius. And so many people have it strapped in, and undo the seatbelt and go is a problem.
Yes, it's not as quick, definitely not. And that when I put that video out, I said this should go because people don't know this simple thing right here, and it's one of the things that I teach. You know, it's you know, when we do the carjacking stuff, have yourself ready, prepared, knife or not. I was going to say sword, knife or gun. Yeah. You know, you got to be prepared.
Sword, get the sword, but
yeah. I know. If you carry a sword, I guess if you're in Texas, yes.
Do you? I don't know if you ever do. So I actually have a number of these. I like the. I don't always wear it around my neck. Sometimes I will if I'm concealing it, but I have these where you have a concealable. You know.
Oh yeah.
And so I actually, I'll be doing a video on this. I've got 2 ways to pull. I always have one that is a downward draw and one that's an upward draw, so that if I get pinned on one side and I can't get to my downward, I can get to my upward. If I can't get to my upward, I can get to my downward. Because I'm not assuming that I can go up each time. I might have to go down to be able to get out. And so how do you have anything like that? I know there's a number of
I used to wear a neck knife, and I don't anymore. I wear both my knives in my pocket. I have one that's for sock, which is ice pick position, and I have one, standard position. I got one that's for ice pick position, which is called position. Yes, and if I'm going to pull out 2, if I really need to, of course. But usually because one hand's available and the other one's not. You know, and so that's why I carry 2.
Yeah,
I used to carry a third. It's just too much, man. I got too much hardware on me, you know.
I definitely know that half the time I actually bought one of those duty belts just because there was so much gear. And I like to do it where, you know, depending on where you're going, you know, if it's going to be a long road trip versus you're going to the gas station kind of thing. But, you know, there's so many of these when you have them. And I love that about just different methodology of carrying. I think it's it's just super important because it doesn't even, almost doesn't matter, because you have to kind of retrofit it to you where you can get to. But I'll tell you one I do. I don't ever have it where I'm coming back here. I think this is
definitely not. Yeah.
like has to be minimum hip 3 or 9 o'clock and usually appendix and forward, because anywhere else you're going to have an issue, and especially defeating clothing.
Yes. If you're on somebody and somebody could reach for your weapon, that's bad news.
Yeah.
In the front, that's much harder, even for somebody, toe to toe to get to you, you know?
Yeah.
And I always felt if they could get to the weapon, while it's on me like that, you could have it. But, good luck there. That's the way I feel,
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. There's so many of these lessons, and this is why it's so super important. It's also one of the reasons I loved everything from Filipino martial arts, everything like Kanata was talking about with Piper and Medusa. I didn't even know about what those were. That's amazing, stuff they've got. The weaponized disciplines, because you can do the motion with a tool with open hand, but it also does have that transferability into different tools. And so I think so many of these lessons, and really drilling the ever-living goodness out of it, so there is no thought process. It just goes, it just happens because you're so used to hitting and extending. That stuff, God, it takes so long to be able to drill it. I don't ever feel like we can drill it enough.
Yeah. Many people that carry weapons don't practice the drilling part at all. And especially in worst case scenario situations. We've actually been on the ground and wrestled and, pull out a training knife, of course, because we've got folding trainers too. And we've done that. And we've gone for, training guns too, and put it in the holster that we carry. And I say, hey, wrestle and see if you get to it, And usually you have to get away from the wrestling first, somehow scooting away and getting to your pistol and know how to do it when you fire from the ground,
Yeah.
So that's another. So these scenarios are very important. Yeah. Hey, SWAT scenario trains, the police scenario train when they got to do a raid, the military. I'm sure everything they've done when they go into a building, it's all scenario trained before they do it. And there's a reason why they scenario train. So anybody who thinks differently and thinks their ego is, they don't need to, they're going to be the ones that are in trouble when something goes down.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. There's so many people, and that's kind of the scariest part to me. I always say on the videos, I have a problem with the firearm industry at large, and it's not really the industry, it's the people. They train, and like everybody who does, they're fairly well known. You have memberships, and you go often. The regulars, just like anything else. You have so many people. I would be surprised if maybe 2 or 3 out of 10 would actually be training all the time. What would you think would be a ratio for that?
I think a lot less. I think majority of people, if you got 100 people that own a gun, I'm going to say 1 trains out of that, because everybody I know that carries a gun that aren't martial artists, I'm saying, they don't train it. They don't even draw their gun,
Don't.
And most people don't.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know how many of them even clean it on a regular basis. it's like,
oh, that'd be a nightmare.
It's safe in the safe. It goes in the safe, and I've worn a sidearm every day for the last almost 12 years, and I mean every single day. And so these things have to be done in a way where it's just a part of your life. And if you're going to have it, and like you said, grabbing the guy, that is their mentality still. They think, I own and possess one, so I'm fine.
Yeah.
Not much about I actually have it on me where we're going, or even just at home,
Yeah.
They don't remember if they left it loaded or not. And, we treat every firearm as if it's always loaded, but that's for treating. Do you have rounds in the magazine, or did you leave?
Yeah.
So many of those.
I carry one in the chamber, actually. So I'm well prepared,
100% with you. I am always going condition 0. I don't like even condition 1. I can have it sometimes where my safety is on, but usually, and it's funny that you mentioned that with Smith & Wesson, because it's my primary is Smith & Wesson 10 mil, and it has no safety. I don't run a safety. On that particular tool.
Glock doesn't either. I carry Glock, and they don't have a safety either.
Right. Absolutely. So my whole spiel on it is making sure retention holster, minimum stage 2, if not stage 3, and then drill the heck out of that. So it's harder for them to get out of. If I get tackled, it's not going flying. That's my concern with Kydex always. And it's the same thing on the edge weapons too. Not a lot of these are really like that. I think I've got one retention diving knife, and that's my favorite type of knife, and I just can't get enough of those.
The diving knife that shoots the air, you mean? Or
no, it's just a diving knife that's meant for well, if you have to kill a shark, and it's a locking holster is what it is. And
okay. All right, okay.
So
I know what you mean.
Yeah, to have the retention holsters, because it's on this one. It's not that I won't ever wear it on the neck, because I will. Sometimes when I run a third, it's usually this. But I also like to just kind of put it as my belt one, and my belt itself pins this down, so I actually have to pull harder to get it out.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of my pet peeves with this is, and just telling everybody what happens when you get tackled. If you're tackled, and because a lot of people think that they're not going to be tackled for some reason, I don't know, like they're going to know it's coming. I always think, okay, especially if there's multiple people, there's a good chance I got hit a couple times, and now I know I'm in a fight, and I could easily be on the ground. And if you're in that position already, and you have any tool that's not on your body and like staying, you just armed your assailant. And I think it's a huge consideration.
Yeah, definitely. That's another thing. You got to be able to have, weapon retention as well when you do pull it out. And that's the problem. Like women, when I say they never train with a gun, they just buy it and feel safe.
Right.
It can be used against them too.
Right.
And they can, and you got to be able to, I don't know, you got to do simulation firing also, and training like that, because otherwise you freeze. You don't know. Should I kill him? Should I not? Am I going to get in trouble? All these things are going through your brain.
Right.
There's a lot to think about with a gun or a knife that way,
Absolutely. You ever have them drill?
And I try to go through that mentality training in my school.
Right. Yeah. That's what I was going to ask. Do you have them drill their verbal commands too, or how do you do it?
Basically, well, I mean, if there's a distance, there would be you could give a warning.
Right.
I got a gun. I'm going to kill you. You know what I mean? You come, you bother me. That's the thing. To round it off. And if they pursue, then you got to do what you got to do.
Right.
Cops run across this all the time, and they're backing up with their gun.
Right.
That's the right thing to do, actually.
Right. Yeah.
Guy's still coming. Change lead until you get the distance and you see he's going to make it to you. Boom. You got to do what you got to do.
Right.
If it's on film, it definitely helps you. That's the thing too.
Right.
It's hard. The police have the benefits of the cameras.
Right. So we actually do too, and that's the thing I talk to a lot of students about is you can get a body camera on Amazon for $40. You can. They're not. I mean, they're not the Axion that the cops have that are recording that has the playback feature, 30 seconds or 60 seconds, playback. But you can get them. I've got pen versions, but we're all also walking around with the smartphones. If you even think something's going to happen, you can hit record. I always tell them go live, because if they get to you and they get to your device, you can't delete a live that had to connect to another server, and if people are already watching it. There's so many of those tactics, and that's awesome that you go through and do all of them with the different tactics training. It's my favorite material. It's what's happening here that we're deploying that makes tools be able to work. It's not the tool; it's you and what you know how to do.
Yes. I do want to do a seminar on getting to your weapon. It's something that I want to do this summer. I'm actually thinking of doing it right in my backyard. We got a lake in the backyard and everything, so I kind of want to do something, just have a beautiful setting instead of just a martial arts setting.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
people don't live in the woods, but most people come from cities. But I'm just saying it'd be a nice setting. Kind of a zen like setting, doing something so violent.
Right. That's awesome. Yes, I think especially in the real world, training stuff is some of my favorite. Whenever we're doing this and going over it, especially by your vehicles, if you can do that and go to a place that allows you, obviously the natural backstops that are either like hills or mountains or sand or whatever they have, but if you can shoot from your own vehicle and practice doing that, getting behind your own engine block, whatever your setup is, to be able to do it, I think it's some of the best, because you've done it before. It's not
Yeah.
into you. And, there's so many of these little things, I think, that just make a really big difference. I know we were talking about this, and Hargrove has a special way with, I think he had a band. Do you ever do with any of the ropes or anything like that for retention? Do you tie your karambit or
That I don't do.
you don't
No,
do that one?
that
No.
I don't do. No,
Do you have a specific way of doing them, or you don't have any ropes or anything?
I don't have any ropes on my
Oh, okay.
my knives. No, no. I just old fashioned way, just
Right.
regular. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
Sure.
It's just something I never did.
Right.
I worked sarong and whatever rope techniques that way for fighting with it, so I could get to
Right.
my primary weapon. But
Yeah.
if it come down to it, I mean, the only thing I carry that's flexible is basically a scarf in the winter.
Well,
But
there you go. They
yeah,
can use it, absolutely. So let me ask
yeah,
you, since I know you do so many different Filipino martial arts, finger in the hole all the way, half knuckle, like, Arcado would say, or is it a no-no? How do you do it?
I do it with the finger all the way in. I know Brian. I guess he specifies that the knuckle more like this, and I go all the way with it. And it's probably on my last this part of my finger, not this part of my finger. But I think that's personal preference. If he feels comfortable doing that,
Right.
that's another thing. The way I learned it was on the last part of the finger. I learned a little bit from Herman Sawanda, and some other instructors also that work with karambit, like Larry Hartzell, Dan Anasanto. They like the karambit a lot. Larry, of course, would like it because it's grappling oriented. So
Right.
he liked that. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's one of my favorite tools, easily, the karambit. I have another of them, and whether it's, just a straight fixed blade and full tang, or even just running off of a folder, I love them. Do you prefer, well, we call it upper cradle and lower cradle. I know there's a number of versions for them. What
Always called position, the ice pick position. I feel, yeah. I never seen it, never been formally taught it with hanging out the other way. I know some people teach it that way nowadays,
Right.
But I've never seen it taught that way. The karambit is not a dueling weapon per se.
Right.
It's more of a weapon of deception.
Right.
I was talking to some people down in southern Mindanao. They talk about the karambit because we got on the subject of it. And they say back in olden times, people would jump out of the trees and just assassinate people and then disappear.
Right.
Basically, cut the throats of, whatever they were fighting another tribe or whatever, occupationers were going on at the time, things like that. And that's how they fought with it. It's more of a weapon of deception.
Right.
If they're going to duel, they're going to duel with a longer knife,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's a really good point with these. And I'm not sure where it comes from. Maybe you are the history teacher on this. We were taught that it is resembling from nature because it resembles a claw. And that's what it is. And that when you're doing this with specifically, because most of the straight blade work we do is upper cradle. And there's more motion there in some of that, but we were always taught this is the lower cradle weapon. And the reason is because you can basically make it look like it's a punch, but because it's going so quick, they're not seeing that or that. And so
hence the weapon of deception.
And that, all of a sudden that punch is no longer a punch. It is it's a blade coming in. And so when the history on these and where they were developed?
As far as I know, Indonesia is where it originated, and it was supposed to represent the tiger claw.
Right.
That's what the myth, the legend is on it. Whether it's true or not, there's a lot of myths and legends on different weapons,
Absolutely.
But it worked its way into the Philippines. Southern Philippines has a lot of silat and kuntao, which same as Indonesia. I never saw the weapon in Chinese martial arts at all. I never seen it anywhere else except Indonesian and the Philippines. As far as I know Brunei, that area has it. But that's again associated with that little area of the Philippines. So That's
Yeah.
as far as the you know, how long ago it
Right.
arrived in Indonesia, that I don't know.
Right.
But it was always a weapon of self-defense, a weapon of deception.
Right.
Women are known to carry karambits.
Right.
So you probably, it would be hard to grab a woman and abuse her in
Yeah.
Indonesia or the southern Philippines,
Right.
because they're going to have something on them that's
Right.
going to that helps them say no.
Absolutely. I think, and that's
Yeah,
a great point. I love that, especially for, and we call them equalizers for a reason. These
yeah,
are tools that, you know, you don't ever want to brandish a weapon, the legalities of it, until it's appropriate to do so. Because if you're being threatened or you think something's going to happen and you have to brandish a weapon to stop a threat, that's totally different.
yeah,
Then you're legal to be brandishing a weapon. And when you get to that point, I think that's a pretty good deterrent, you know. And
yeah,
you see that coming out, and you're like, okay, so this person's going to cut me, and
yeah,
it's just such a wicked thing. I love them so much, and I love that it incorporates the deception about that.
yeah.
So we'll go with one more. What is your favorite self-defense tool? If you had to pick amongst everything, what do you prefer?
Self-defense tool.
Correct tool.
I give a simple answer by saying the one that I grabbed that works at the time.
The one that works. Right answer.
Yes, exactly. Because
Whatever stops the
I'll
threat.
grab if I'm in an area where I could grab sand and throw it in his eyes, kick him in the nuts, and finger jab his eyes. That's good.
Yeah.
If I could spitting is part of Kuntao. You spit, kick him in the groin. Those are legal tools, by the way. I doubt anybody's going to jail for
Right.
sand or spit.
Right. I love that about Kuntao, because that's not something you hear in other disciplines. I don't know if I've ever heard a discipline talk about spitting.
Yeah.
And there's a number of them that will do finger jabs and things like that, which I do. I know a lot of the guys see a lot. There's some friends in there that do fantastic work. I love them as well, and hear it more from them about those. But spitting is the first time I've heard that one.
Yeah, spitting is very common. That's what we're taught. Right from the beginning, even when I was the same way you were, I was like, wow, spitting. I never thought of that.
Right.
I thought it was kick punch,
Right.
But it is part of it. I mean, everybody reacts. They go like this when
Right.
somebody spits at you, and now you react during that second. So it's like your jab cross. You know how you got to follow up, bomb, right? You spit, bomb. That's it. So you're following up like your jab cross.
I love that.
And
excellent point.
yeah, so yes, and it's a good weapon of deception if you need be. Just hopefully you don't have a dry mouth at the time,
Yeah, that's awesome. Absolutely. There are so many of these, and I think that's one of the coolest things about what you do and everything with PFW. When you get to go see, the history, you get to go see so many of these different things. And so, where can people find you on social media? And we will tag you here. What was your sites again and your social media handles?
Okay. Well, my website for TFW is traditionalfilipinoweapons.com. And that's Filipino spelled with an F. A lot of people get that mixed up.
Right.
I don't know why Philippines is spelled with a PH and Filipino is spelled with an F. I don't know the reason why. They say Philippines and they say Filipino. So,
yeah.
And I got the Practical Self-Defense Training Center in Waterbury, Connecticut. That's psdtc.com. The initials of Practical Self-Defense Training Center. And I'm on Facebook. It's basically, you look up my name. I've got 3 Facebook pages. I've only been working on one because it's just too much for me, trying to, advertise and, talk on all of them and answer all the questions on all of them. So I've only been on one where I've got a picture. I can't remember what the picture. I think it's with a stick, and it's a black and white picture. That's the one I'm on mostly. Yeah. That's the one I'm always on. I haven't been on the others. I can't remember the passwords anyway. I could probably recover them. It's just such a hassle to go on all these social media.
Yeah.
I am on Twitter or X. I'm on there. I'm on Instagram. I guess you just look up my name, and I think it's got the picture of the dagger. I think I got a Bowie knife showing on that one on Instagram.
Right.
And let me think. TikTok, of course. It's my full name, Ron Kosakowski, underscore TFW, underscore TFW, which that's also my YouTube name also.
Okay. There you go.
And you can look that up on YouTube. It's the underscore TFW after my name, underscore PSDTC, because I display both stuff on both those channels.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And I give a lot away, so people could open up a school with all the videos that I do give away there.
Right. We love that, especially, you've got so many history lessons on here where you want to know about all of these different weapons, and there's so many of them, all the history and everything that comes going through these. But yes, and you definitely want to check out his videos and go through, like we said, throughout the whole interview there, so many different aspects of training, no matter what you're into, and self-defense, into martial arts, into these things. He's got a space where he's in all of them. He's covering all the bases. And I think definitely want to give him a follow. Check him out. Please go check out the site. I am telling you, when you're talking about self-defense tools, this is why it was one of my favorites, because these things have to be solid. You never want to have a tool break on you in an emergency.
Yeah. And I noticed it's black too. Very good.
Right.
Because nighttime, that's very intelligent, actually.
Yeah. I always prefer the black ones, the silver ones. I've got one with the silver handle, and I'm like, I like it. It was a gift. I love it because it's a buck, but it's also a day knife. Everything else has to be dark because, you don't blend into the shirt unless you're right there. You're not seeing anything. And so I appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much for
thank you very much. Yes,
sharing your lesson with us. And everybody, give our instructor here and come out and see the Fight Science Workshop. We are super excited to be getting that, and we'll be on the first and third Saturday of every month. So
I can't wait to start teaching that. That's going to be good.
it'll be excellent. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. We'll talk with you soon.
All right. Thank you very much. Take care. You got it.
Bye-bye.